Episode 3. Wisdom, Sophia, the discipline that governs all others. Before we begin, let me be clear about something. What you're about to hear is not information. It is orientation. Wisdom is not about knowing more. It is about seeing clearly. And clarity is rare in a world that profits from confusion. If you're here because you're tired of reacting, tired of being pulled emotionally by news, opinions, markets, setbacks, and noise, tired of feeling intelligent but not always grounded, then this chapter is for you. This is episode 3. You're entering the realm of wisdom. Sophia, let's transition into why this matters so much now. If you value conversations about discipline, judgment, and self-command, I invite you to subscribe to this channel. These episodes are not isolated. They are a system. Miss one, and the structure weakens. If this subject already resonates with you, hit the like button. It helps this message reach men who are searching for clarity, but don't yet have the words for it. And if you know another man, brother, friend, colleague, who feels overwhelmed by modern chaos, share this episode with him. Not as advice, as an invitation. Now listen carefully, because wisdom begins with one brutal realization. Most of what exhausts you was never under your control. Let's transition to a crucial principle. Distinguish what you control versus what you don't. Clarity is the beginning of freedom. Let me start with a truth that sounds simple, but changes everything once you actually live it. You suffer far more from confusion about control than from reality itself. Most men are not weak. They are misdirected. They pour energy into places where it produces nothing. Arguments they can't win. Outcomes they can't force. Opinions they can't change. Events they can't reverse. And then they wonder why they feel drained, anxious, and resentful. Wisdom begins here. Not everything that affects you belongs to you. That single distinction, what is yours to command and what is not, was the foundation of Stoic wisdom. Without it, no discipline holds. The first act of a wise man is not action. It is sorting. Before reacting, before planning, before worrying, he asks, is this within my control? If the answer is no, he releases it. Not emotionally, not dramatically. Strategically, this is not apathy. It is precision. What you control and what you never will. Let's be exact. You control your judgments, your decisions, your effort, your values, your response. You do not control outcomes, other people, markets, public opinion, timing, luck. Most men reverse this list and pay for it daily. They obsess over outcomes but neglect effort. They argue about opinions but abandon discipline. They fear markets but ignore preparation. Wisdom restores order. Why men resist this distinction? Here's the uncomfortable truth. Many men prefer anxiety to responsibility because anxiety feels active. Responsibility requires action. Worrying about what you can't control creates the illusion of engagement, but it produces nothing. Wisdom strips away that illusion. It says, focus where your actions actually matter. And that is frightening because it removes excuses. Historical context. Why Stoics survive chaos. The Stoics did not develop this philosophy in peaceful times. They lived through political purges, exile, assassinations, wars, plagues. They learned quickly that emotional reaction was a liability. Men who panicked died first. Men who obsessed over injustice broke internally. Men who focused on control endured. Wisdom was not intellectual. It was survival training. Control as a weapon against fear. Fear thrives in ambiguity. When everything feels like your responsibility, nothing feels manageable. Wisdom shrinks the battlefield. Instead of fighting the world, you fight your response to it. And that is a battle you can actually win. When I stopped trying to control outcomes, something unexpected happened. I became calmer, more decisive, less reactive, more effective, because clarity reduces noise. Markets, opinions, and the modern trap. Today, men are emotionally hijacked by things they were never meant to carry. Markets fluctuate, men panic. Opinions shift, men react. Trends change, men lose grounding. Wisdom asks, what is actually mine to manage right now? Preparation, skill, adaptability, character. The wise man invests there and nowhere else. Why this single idea changes everything. Once you truly understand control, 3 things happen. 1. Anxiety decreases. 2. Focus sharpens. 3. Discipline becomes possible, because discipline without wisdom becomes rigidity. Wisdom makes discipline intelligent. The inner citadel. The Stoics spoke of an inner stronghold, a place untouched by chaos. That stronghold is built on this distinction. When you stop letting external disorder invade your inner world, strength appears naturally, not loud, not aggressive, stable, the daily practice of wisdom. Wisdom is not a concept. It is a habit. Every day, multiple times a day, the wise man asks, is this mine to control? If not, what is? What response aligns with reason, not impulse? That pause is everything. The cost of ignoring this lesson. Men who never learn this distinction live in permanent reaction. They're always late emotionally, always responding, always exhausted. They confuse motion with progress. Wisdom ends that cycle. Wisdom begins with humility, not the humility of weakness, but the humility of accuracy, knowing what is yours, and having the discipline to ignore what is not. That is the first gate, and you just step through it. Make decisions based on reason, not emotion. Emotion is information. Reason is command. Let me begin this section with a hard truth, one most men resist at first. Emotion is not the problem. Letting emotion decide is. Emotion is automatic. The decision is voluntary. Wisdom lives in the distance between the two. Most men believe they are rational because they can explain their choices after the fact. But explanation is not wisdom. It is often just emotion wearing logic as camouflage. Wisdom is not the ability to feel less. It is the ability to decide clearly while feeling fully. That distinction is everything. Why men confuse emotion with truth. Emotion feels real because it is immediate. Anger feels urgent. Fear feels protective. Desire feels convincing. Emotion speaks in absolutes. This is unacceptable. I must act now. If I don't respond, I lose. And because emotion arrives first, most men assume it must be right. But emotion is not a judge. It is a signal. Wisdom begins when you stop asking, what do I feel? And start asking, what does reason say? The Stoic view of emotion. The Stoics did not attempt to eliminate emotion. They understood something modern culture forgets. Emotion cannot be prevented. Reaction can. Emotion is weather. Reason is architecture. A wise man builds his inner structure so that the weather does not dictate his actions. When emotion surges, wisdom does not suppress it. Wisdom slows time. That pause, sometimes no more than a breath, is where authority lives. The moment of pause. Every consequential mistake I've ever made followed the same pattern. Emotion, speed, regret. Emotion pushed me to speak too quickly, to decide too soon, to react before understanding. Wisdom reverses the sequence. Emotion, pause, reason, action. That pause is not a weakness. It is a command reclaimed. When I learned to delay decisions until emotion settled, even slightly, the quality of my choices changed immediately, not because emotion disappeared, but because it no longer ruled. Anger, the illusion of clarity. Anger is the most seductive emotion. It feels strong. It feels decisive. It feels righteous. That is why it is dangerous. Anger narrows perception. It removes nuance. It simplifies complex situations into enemies and allies. The Stoics warn that anger creates the illusion of clarity, and men mistake that illusion for wisdom. A man acting from anger feels certain. A man acting from reason is careful. History shows this clearly. Wars begun in anger last longer. Decisions made in anger cost more. Words spoken in anger cannot be reclaimed. Wisdom teaches restraint not because anger is immoral, but because anger is short-sighted. Fear, the tyrant that pretends to protect. Fear convinces men that they are being cautious. In reality, fear often paralyzes or rushes decisions, both equally destructive. Fear exaggerates risk. Fear compresses time. Fear frames inaction as safety. Wisdom corrects fear by restoring proportion. Instead of asking, "What if everything goes wrong?" the wise man asks, "What is the most rational response given the facts I have?" That question removes drama. Desire, the sweetest liar. Desire is persuasive. It doesn't threaten. It promises. Desire says, "This will make you feel better. You deserve this. Now is the right time." Wisdom interrogates desire, not harshly, precisely. Is this aligned with my long-term direction? Will this choice cost me clarity tomorrow? Reason does not kill desire. It places it under review. Historical context. Why Stoic leaders lasted. The Stoics rose in eras of instability, political uncertainty, economic volatility. Public opinion is swinging violently. Leaders who ruled emotionally did not last. Leaders who ruled rationally endured. They understood that emotion is contagious. A leader who reacts emotionally infects everyone beneath him. Wisdom was leadership hygiene. The disciplined leader absorbed emotion without broadcasting it. He listened, assessed, and responded deliberately. That is not coldness. That is responsibility. Why modern men struggle with reason. Modern life rewards speed, immediate responses, instant opinions, real-time reactions. Wisdom requires something modern systems discourage. Delay. Delay feels like weakness in a culture obsessed with immediacy. But delay is where judgment is formed. When you slow down, emotion loses its leverage. Reason is not intelligence. Here's another misconception. Being intelligent does not make you rational. Highly intelligent men often rationalize emotion more skillfully. They build elegant arguments for impulsive choices. Wisdom is not IQ. It is discipline applied to thought. Reason requires training. You do not become rational by accident. You practice it deliberately. The practice of rational decision-making. When emotion is high, wisdom applies structure. I ask myself, what facts are actually known? What assumptions am I making? What would this look like in 6 months? What choice preserves optionality? Emotion hates these questions. Reason thrives on them. This is not overthinking. This is decision hygiene. Why reason feels unnatural at first. Emotion is fast. Reason is deliberate. Emotion feels authentic. Reason feels restrained. Most men mistake restraint for suppression. But restraint is not silence. It is a sequence. Emotion speaks first. Reason speaks last. And the voice that speaks last determines direction. Markets, opinions, and emotional contagion. Nowhere is this clearer than in modern markets and public opinion. Fear spreads faster than facts. Outrage spreads faster than understanding. Panic spreads faster than reality. Wise men do not ignore emotion, but they refuse to be swept by it. They ask, what is noise? What is a signal? That separation is wisdom in action. The cost of emotional decisions. Emotional decisions feel good briefly and cost heavily later. They cost reputation, resources, relationships, self-respect, and regret always arrives calmly. Wisdom learns from this pattern early. Reason as an act of self-respect. Choosing reason over emotion is not cold. It is self-respect. It says, I will not let temporary feelings sabotage long-term direction. That stance changes how you see yourself. And self-perception shapes behavior. Wisdom is not about feeling less. It is about making better decisions. Emotion informs. Reason commands. And the man who places reason above impulse becomes difficult to manipulate, difficult to provoke, and difficult to defeat. That is the second gate of wisdom. And once you pass it, the reaction loses its throne. Respond thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively. Reaction is automatic. Response is chosen. Let me start this section with a distinction that separates wise men from reactive ones. Reaction happens to you. Response comes from you. Most men believe they are responding, when in reality they are reacting, and they don't realize it until damage is done. Reaction is fast. Response is deliberate. Reaction feels powerful in the moment. Response creates power over time. Wisdom lives entirely in that difference. The invisible cost of reaction. Reaction is seductive because it feels honest. You feel something, you act on it, and you tell yourself, at least I'm being real. But honesty without judgment is not wisdom. It is exposure. Every impulsive reaction carries a hidden cost. Words you can't retrieve. Decisions you can't undo. Impressions you can't erase. Consequences that arrive later, quietly, without drama. Most men don't connect those consequences back to the moment of reaction. They blame circumstances. They blame others. They blame bad luck. Wisdom sees a pattern. I have learned, sometimes painfully, that one impulsive response can undo months of disciplined effort, not because a mistake was catastrophic, but because of the reaction compounds. Why reaction feels so natural? Reaction feels natural because it is biological. Your nervous system evolved to respond quickly to threats. Speed once meant survival. Hesitation meant death. But most modern threats are not physical. They are social, financial, reputational, and emotional. And yet the body reacts the same way. Heart rate rises. Breath shortens. Vision narrows. The body prepares for danger, even when none exists. Wisdom recognizes that this ancient system must be overridden, not obeyed blindly. The Stoic pause. The Stoics understood something crucial. Between stimulus and action, there is a pause. That pause is small, but it is everything. Wisdom trains that pause, not to disappear, to expand. The wise man does not try to eliminate reaction. He inserts a delay. Delay weakens the impulse. Delay restores choice. Delay allows reason to enter the room. I do not trust myself at the peak of emotion. I trust myself after the pause. Anger and the need to respond. Anger demands immediacy. It says, respond now or you lose. Silence is weakness. If you don't strike back, you're defeated. This is a lie. Immediate response often strengthens the very thing you oppose. Wisdom understands that silence can be strategic. Delay can be dominant. Many conflicts die when deprived of reaction. Many provocations collapse when not fed. The reactive man gives opponents exactly what they want: attention, escalation, energy. The wise man starved them. Historical context, the power of restraint. Throughout history, the most effective leaders were not the loudest, but the most controlled. Men who responded impulsively were easy to manipulate. Their enemies learned their patterns quickly. Men who responded deliberately were unpredictable and therefore dangerous. Restraint confused adversaries. Silence created uncertainty. Measured response projected authority. Wisdom was not passive. It was contained force. Wise silence is often the strongest response. Silence unsettles impulsive people. They expect a reaction. They feed on it. When none arrives, their power evaporates. Wisdom teaches that not every situation requires a reply. Not every comment deserves engagement. Not every challenge needs confrontation. The need to respond immediately is often ego, not necessity. I have learned that many problems resolve themselves when given time. Many emotional storms burn out when not fueled. Reaction keeps them alive. The difference between control and suppression. Let's be clear about something. Wisdom is not suppression. Suppression denies emotion and stores it internally. That creates pressure. Pressure eventually explodes. Response acknowledges emotion, but refuses to hand at the steering wheel. I feel anger. I feel frustrated. I feel urgency. And then I decide. That decision, not the feeling, is wisdom. Why men fear delay. Many men fear delay because they associate with weakness. They believe, if I don't respond now, I lose ground. If I don't react, I appear passive. If I don't speak, I surrender power. Wisdom reveals the opposite. Reaction hands power away. Response reclaims it. The man who can wait controls a frame. Impulsive response versus thoughtful response. An impulsive response seeks relief, seeks dominance, seeks emotional discharge. A thoughtful response seeks resolution, seeks alignment, seeks long-term positioning. One feels good immediately. The other pays dividends quietly. Wisdom chooses dividends, the practice of thoughtful response. Responding thoughtfully is not theoretical. It is trained. When emotion rises, I ask, what outcome do I actually want? Will this response move me closer or further from it? What happens if I say nothing for now? These questions slow down time, and slowing time restores control. Markets, opinions, and impulse. In modern life, reaction is monetized. Headlines provoke. Opinions polarize. Outrage drives clicks. Reactive men become tools of systems designed to profit from emotion. Wise men opt out. They do not panic over fluctuations. They do not chase every narrative. They do not broadcast every opinion. They respond where it matters and ignore the rest. Why wise men appear calm under pressure? Calm is not a personality. Calm is a trained response. Men who appear calm under pressure are not emotionless. They are disciplined. They have practiced not reacting thousands of times in small moments. So when large moments arrive, control is automatic. Wisdom is built quietly, long before it is needed. The consequences of impulse. Every impulsive reaction teaches the nervous system a lesson. Speed equals safety. Emotion equals truth. Immediate action equals strength. These lessons are wrong, but they reinforce themselves. Wisdom retrains the system. Pause equals control. Reason equals clarity. Response equals authority. This retraining takes time, but it works. Responding to setbacks. Setbacks are emotional traps. Loss invites despair. Failure invites anger. Delay invites frustration. Reaction multiplies damage. Wisdom treats setbacks as data, not identity. Instead of asking, why did this happen to me? The wise man asks, what is the rational response here? That question cuts through emotion like a blade. The inner advantage. A man who responds thoughtfully gains an inner advantage. He is not hijacked by mood. He is not pulled by provocation. He is not drained by noise. He moves deliberately in a reactive world. That alone sets him apart. The daily training ground. Wisdom is trained in small moments, not responding immediately to a message, not correcting every mistake, not defending every position, not reacting to every slight. Each restraint strengthens command. Small wins compound. Reaction is easy. Response is rare. Reaction belongs to impulse. Response belongs to wisdom. And the man who can pause, who can see clearly, who can choose deliberately, will always outmaneuver the man who reacts. That is the third gate of wisdom. And beyond it, clarity becomes instinct. Modern application of wisdom. Clarity in a world designed to shake you. Wisdom is not proven in philosophy. It is proven under pressure. Anyone can sound intelligent in calm conditions. Wisdom reveals itself when things move fast, when emotions rise, when uncertainty dominates, and when the world demands an immediate reaction. This section is about living wisdom, not admiring it. Because in modern times, the greatest threat to clarity is not ignorance. It is overstimulation. Don't panic over markets, opinions, or setbacks. Let me say this plainly. Panic is a failure of wisdom. Not because panic is immoral, but because it is irrational. Markets fluctuate. Opinions shift. Setbacks arrive without warning. These are not abnormalities. They are the natural condition of reality. Yet most men react as if each fluctuation is an emergency. They watch markets daily and feel anxiety hourly. They absorb public opinion and feel personally attacked. They experience setbacks and assume catastrophe. Wisdom sees through this distortion. The wise man understands that volatility is normal, not personal. Markets have always moved. Crowds have always been emotional. Progress has always been uneven. What changes is not reality, but perception. Why panic feels so convincing? Panic compresses time. It convinces you that everything is urgent. Delay equals loss. Immediate action equals safety. This is almost always false. Panic removes context. It narrows vision. It sacrifices long-term clarity for short-term relief. Wisdom resists that pull, not by pretending risk doesn't exist, but by placing risk inside proportion. The The Stoic response to uncertainty. When uncertainty rises, wisdom does not ask, "How do I eliminate risk?" That is impossible. Wisdom asks, "How do I position myself rationally within uncertainty?" This changes everything. Instead of panic, there is preparation. Instead of an emotional reaction, there is an adjustment. Instead of despair, there is strategy. The wise man is not fearless. He is clear-eyed. Opinions are noise. Character is signal. Modern men exhaust themselves reacting to opinions. Online opinions, social opinions, political opinions, cultural opinions. Most of these opinions change weekly. Some change daily. Wisdom does not anchor identity to noise. The wise man understands. Opinions are reflections of emotion, not truth. Crowds amplify emotion. Emotion amplifies distortion. This has always been the case. Wise men throughout history learned to distinguish signal from noise. They did not chase approval. They did not react to every accusation. They did not seek validation from crowds that could not govern themselves. They focus on character. And character outlasts opinion. Setbacks are not signals of failure. Setbacks feel personal. They trigger doubt. They provoke frustration. They tempt despair. Reaction says, "This shouldn't be happening." Wisdom says, "This is data." Every setback contains information about preparation, about timing, about strategy, about endurance. The wise man does not interpret setbacks emotionally. He interprets them analytically. That shift preserves momentum. Long-term thinking versus short-term emotion. This is where wisdom becomes visible. Short-term emotion seeks relief. Long-term thinking seeks a position. Short-term emotion asks, "How do I feel right now?" Long-term wisdom asks, "Where does this decision place me 6 months from now?" Most regret comes from sacrificing the long-term to soothe the short-term. Wisdom refuses that trade. Why long-term thinking feels unnatural. Long-term thinking requires patience. Patience is uncomfortable. Emotion wants resolution now. Wisdom accepts ambiguity longer. This is difficult, but powerful. Men who think long-term, they are harder to manipulate, make fewer dramatic errors, recover faster from setbacks, build durable lives. They appear calm, not because they don't care, but because they see further. The rational question that changes everything. When emotion rises, fear, anger, excitement, frustration, wisdom asks a single grounding question. What is the rational response here? Not the emotional one, not the socially rewarded one, not the dramatic one, the rational one. That question restores order instantly. It forces separation between feeling and action. It brings reason back into command. I use this question constantly. In decisions, in conversations, in conflict, in uncertainty. It has saved me from countless mistakes. Why this question works? Because it does 3 things immediately. 1, it slows time. 2, it lowers emotional intensity. 3, it activates judgment. Emotion hates this question. Wisdom depends on it. Wisdom as a daily practice. Wisdom is not a trait. It is a practice. It is practice when you don't check the market compulsively. You don't respond immediately to provocation. You don't assume the worst during setbacks. You don't chase approval during uncertainty. Each restraint strengthens clarity. Each rational decision compounds. Why wisdom governs all other virtues. This is the final and most important point. Wisdom governs all other virtues. Without wisdom, courage becomes recklessness. Temperance becomes repression. Justice becomes rigidity. Discipline becomes obsession. Wisdom ensures that virtue is applied correctly. It tells courage when to advance and when to wait. It tells temperance when to deny and when to allow. It tells discipline where effort belongs and where it is wasted. Wisdom is a conductor. Without it, every other virtue eventually misfires. The wise man in modern times, the wise man today, does not panic with the crowd, does not react to every opinion, does not collapse under setbacks, does not trade clarity for comfort. He is calm, not because life is easy, but because his judgment is trained. He sees clearly in chaos. That is power. The cost of ignoring wisdom. Men who ignore wisdom live reactively. They feel busy but go nowhere. They feel emotional but not effective. They feel informed but not grounded. They mistake stimulation for insight. Wisdom ends at confusion. Wisdom is not brilliance. It is alignment, seeing what matters, ignoring what doesn't, acting with reason when emotion demands speed. That is Sophia. And when wisdom governs your actions, life becomes quieter, not because problems disappear, but because you are no longer ruled by them. That is mastery. If this episode brought you clarity, if it slowed you down the right way, if it helped you see where your energy truly belongs, I invite you to subscribe to this channel, not for entertainment, for structure, for continuity. Each episode builds on the last. Together, they form a framework for disciplined living in modern times. If wisdom matters to you, hit the like button. It helps this message reach others who are searching for clarity in a noisy world. And if you know another man who is tired of reacting, tired of panic, noise, and emotional drift, share this episode with him. Not as advice, as an invitation. Episode 4 is coming. Until then, choose reason over reaction.